This feels like a make or break year for Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. After an unbelievable run at Cincinnati, he is just 12-13 in 2 full years with the Badgers, and last year went 5-7, seeing Wisconsin's 22-year bowl streak come to an end. And now things aren't getting any easier. They face the Big Ten's toughest schedule, making a bowl berth feel more like a miracle this year than a possibility. But let's see if the Badgers can restart a bowl streak. You take a look at the offense first. They need help, right? And they recognize that, and they went out and hired a new offensive coordinator. Jeff Grimes coming in, very highly thought of across the college football world, hoping he can make an immediate impact this season. Because the Badgers were not good last year offensively. They averaged just 22.6 points per game, 350 yards per game, and only 197 passing yards per game. So they've got a new coordinator to try to come in and fix that, and they've got a new quarterback to try to come in and fix that, landing Billy Edwards, transferring within the conference from Maryland to Wisconsin. He threw for over 3,300 yards and 19 touchdowns in his career with the Terrapins. So hopefully he can improve as a quarterback. Hopefully he can bring some stability here. He's been a starter in the Big Ten. He knows what it takes to win in the Big Ten. Maryland had some solid seasons with him at the helm, hoping that can be the case. I think the Badgers have a solid running back core. Dylan Jones and Damian Dupree make up a very underrated running back core within the Big Ten Conference, and the offensive line has 111 career starts up front. So Wisconsin maybe going to get back to some bully ball, running the ball effectively, beating you up front in the trenches. Their leading wide receiver from last year, Vinny Anthony, does return after posting nearly 700 reception yards, and they also add Jaden Ballard coming in from Ohio State. All in all, on paper, this looks like a significantly better offense for Wisconsin, one that should score a lot more points, should put up a lot more numbers in the passing game, and could maybe hopefully translate to some more wins. Defensively, Wisconsin's strong again. When have they really not been? Wisconsin has always kind of prided themselves on playing a very physical style of defense. 8 starters are back this year from a unit that only gave up 23.1 points per game, only 343 yards per game. But the kicker, the difference maker, is the defensive line. They have to be better up front. Wisconsin had just 17 sacks last year. That's it. 17 sacks. That was the fewest for the program since 1983. So a historic year for Wisconsin last year, but for all the wrong reasons. They've got to find a way to generate more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. But guys like Darrell Peterson returning up front, guys like JVR Suggs transferring in from LSU, those are guys that are hoping to help with that. Luke Fickell went out there, added a lot of transfers on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the front 7. They're hoping to generate more pressure, hoping to stuff the run a little bit more. Christian Alliegro returns at linebacker. He was the number 2 tackler for the Badgers last year, and the secondary is really, really good, very underrated. Guys like Nazir Forquarian, Preston Zachman, who was 3rd on the team in tackles last year, Ricardo Hallman. This is a secondary that has a lot of experience, a lot of talent, and only allowed 178 passing yards per game. That's it. So I really like this secondary. I think it's one of the more underrated defensive units in the conference. If they can bolster that front 7 a little bit more, this team can maybe do something special on the defensive side of the ball. But we said Wisconsin has the toughest schedule in Big Ten play. And if you look at it, that is 100% true. They have to go to Alabama in the non-conference. That's tough enough as it is. And then look at the rest of it. At Michigan, Ohio State, at Oregon, at Indiana, at Minnesota. I mean, tons of really tough road games, and even the home games aren't anything super easy either. I mean, Iowa's not going to be easy. Ohio State's not easy. Washington, Illinois, not easy. So just a brutal, brutal schedule. Wisconsin, if they want to get back to the postseason, is going to have to find some way to pull off an upset or two. I do think they start 2-0. I think they'll beat Miami, Ohio. I think they'll beat Middle Tennessee State. Shouldn't be an issue there. And I do think they're going to lose to Alabama. And I don't think that's up for much debate. They lost to the Crimson Tide 42-10 last year. I think it will be interesting in this game to see how Wisconsin's secondary fares against a new Alabama quarterback. They were torched by Jalen Milroe last year. He's gone. Bama more than likely going to start Ty Simpson. So how does Simpson fare against a very strong secondary? How does Alabama's offense look with so many new pieces? That is something to watch out for. Maybe Wisconsin loses by less than 32, but they're not going to beat Alabama, especially not in Tuscaloosa. So they drop to 2-1. I do think they'll beat Maryland, who I think will be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten this year. Too many questions on both sides of the ball. The Billy Edwards reunion game, and luckily for him, it's being played in Madison. So Wisconsin wins that game, and they're 3-1 heading in to their bye week, their first bye week. Not bad. 4 games in, third of the way through the season, and you are halfway to bowl eligibility. But now it's time for the schedule to get tough. Look at the next 4 games. Bookended by road games to Michigan and Oregon, and then sandwiched in there one of your biggest rivals, and of course Ohio State, the reigning national champions. Absolutely brutal. If I'm Wisconsin, I'm looking at this thinking if I can just get one win out of these next 4, that might be considered a success. Well, I'm going to tell you, they're not going to beat Michigan. They're not going to go on the road to the Big House and beat a Michigan team that has a fantastic defense and offensively should be much better than they were last year, especially with the addition of Bryce Underwood. I think he's going to really pan out, probably going to be living up to the hype that came with being the number 1 player in the entire country. So don't see them beating Michigan on the road. Then they play Iowa. This, to me, is probably the most winnable game of the next 4 if you're Wisconsin, right? And look, they were disgusted with how last year went against the Hawkeyes. They lost to Iowa 42-10 last year. Just lost to Alabama 42-10. And after the game, you heard coach and players, when's the last time you heard Iowa putting up 40 points on somebody? When's the last time you heard about Iowa putting up over 400 yards of offense on somebody? It was just a disgusting performance by the Badgers in what is obviously a very big game for them every single year. They were so disgusted by their performance and so upset by their performance that during spring practice, at the end of every practice session, the players dropped and did 42 push-ups. 42 push-ups for the 42 points they gave up to Iowa. So some would say, well, no, there's no way Wisconsin's going to be 32 points better now. They're not going to be Iowa. I beg to differ. This has been on the mind of these players all year long. Probably been on the mind of these players since they lost to Iowa last year. I don't think Luke Fickell allows his squad to lose this game, especially not at home in Madison. I don't think Iowa's going to be all that great this year. Still don't have too much faith in their offense, despite the addition of Mark Gronowski. The defense, solid per usual. So is Wisconsin's. I'm not saying the Badgers return the favor by winning by 30 and putting up over 400 yards, but I do think Wisconsin does get the job done. Maybe a little bit lower scoring than last year, but they do win this game. They are 4-2, and they will lose their next 2. But to me, mission accomplished. We said they needed to win one of the next 4. They get it done against Iowa. They will lose to Ohio State. Some say this is a trap game. We know Madison's not an easy place to play, and Ohio State does have a handful of questions on both sides of the ball, but that back 7 going to be really good for the Buckeyes this year. And I think by this point in the season, Julian Sayin has gotten a little bit better. So I do think they lose to Ohio State, and I do think they lose to Oregon in Eugene, despite playing Oregon close last year, only losing 16-13 in Madison. Oregon, like Ohio State, loses a lot, has questions on both sides of the ball, but again, I just don't think Wisconsin has enough to win that game on the road. Oregon reloaded a lot through the transfer portal, and again, by the end of October, those transfers will have begun to gel and build up a lot more chemistry. So through 2/3 of the season, Wisconsin is at 500. They're 4-4. Some would say that's a success considering how rough the schedule has been, but that means they've got to win 2 of their final 4 games if they want to get back to the postseason. They missed out last year. Feels like they need to get there this year. Feels like that would be a heck of an accomplishment considering what they're up against. They come out of the bye week and they find themselves 1 win away because they will beat Washington. They will beat Washington, and I think that's an upset. A lot of people hyping up Washington this year, believing they could be the real deal, maybe a playoff contender for some. And I think they are going to improve. Went 6-7 last year, will be very competitive and honestly could probably hang with anybody on any given day in the Big Ten. But this is going to be a very tough environment for the Huskies. This is going to be a very tough environment for what's still a young quarterback in Damon Williams going up against this Wisconsin defense and this Wisconsin secondary. Additionally, Washington allowed 162 rushing yards per game last year. While I do think that number will improve, I think they will be better on the front 7. I think this is a classic example of Wisconsin off a week of rest, knowing they've got to get a win, bullying the Huskies up front, having their way with them on the ground, and it's going to set up a couple big passing plays from Billy Edwards that will give Wisconsin the win. Trap game for the Huskies. They fall victim to the trap. Wisconsin is 5-4. They need 1 win in their final 3 games to get to the postseason. That's all they need, and they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. And I truly, truly hate to say that. But I look at those final 3 games. I don't think they're going to beat Indiana on the road. I just don't. A playoff team last year could be a playoff team again this year. Kurt Cignetti reloaded through the portal. You got Fernando Mendoza coming in from California. Roman Hemby coming in from Maryland. A very good wide receiver core. A loaded defense once again that was creating turnovers left and right. Just don't see them getting the win over Indiana. The most winnable game here, you would argue, is probably Illinois or Minnesota. Illinois, the Brett Bielema Bowl. used to coach at Wisconsin, now the head coach for the Fighting Illini. But Illinois, at this point in the year, could be in the hunt for playoff discussion. They will be in playoff discussion, I should say. They've got 19 starters coming back. They got the edge at quarterback in Luke Altmaier. They've got some solid running backs. They've got a really strong offensive line, and their defense is going to be one of the best, I think, in the entire country. And their secondary is one of the best in the entire country. So I look at this game and say, yes, it's at home. It's on senior day. This feels winnable for Wisconsin. But I say, how can they move the ball? How will they be able to score against this Illinois defense? And will the Wisconsin defense, if the offense is going 3 and out or failing to do anything, can the Wisconsin defense hold on long enough to keep them in the game until the fourth quarter? I just don't think so. So they lose to Illinois. Backs against the wall. If you beat Minnesota, you go bowling. If you lose, you stay home 5-7 for the second year in a row. That is what's going to happen. They lost to Minnesota 24-7 last year. The 135th meeting between the Badgers and the Golden Gophers. But this Minnesota team, I really do have a lot of faith in. I think PJ Fleck's got this team flying under the radar. Offense looks better than it's been in a long time, especially if Drake Lindsey pans out. We know the defense is going to be really, really stingy at home for the Golden Gophers. Senior day for them. They're not going to allow themselves to lose to their bitter rivals. They win that game, and Wisconsin finishes 5-7, 3-6 in conference play. It feels like deja vu, right? You know, the Badgers get off to a really strong start. Last year, they started 5-4, lost their final 3. Really started 5-2 and lost their last 5. But this year, they'll be 5-4 again, needing just one win to go bowling. They will lose their last 3, unfortunately, and will fall short. And it makes you wonder, could this spark the end of the Luke Fickell era? You know, he's 12-13 coming into this year. Would be, 17-20? 17-20 through 3 years with 2 losing seasons? That's not acceptable by Wisconsin standards. That's not what they're paying him for. That's not what they want out of their head coach. So if he fails to go bowling, despite how tough the schedule is, will he get the boot? That remains to be seen. But Wisconsin, as we said at the beginning, it feels like it would be a miracle, take a miracle, to get the Badgers to the postseason. I just don't think it happens. They're going to have to find a way to pull off some massive upset where they will be an underdog. And I just don't think they have the team to do it. Wisconsin, 5-7. Truly hate to see it. Better days certainly will be ahead, but the million-dollar question is whether Luke Fickell will be around to lead them. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those expert picks, home to our weekly newsletters, home to tons of exclusive content that you do not want to miss out, not just right now, but also not during the regular season. So go sign up, become a member of our GE Nation, again, over on thegridironexpert.com. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.